Hey, and welcome everybody to Looks Good From Here, the show where we talk to designers and educators and creative thinkers shaping what the web looks like and what it really takes to get there. I'm Nick from SquareKicker, and today I'm talking to Omari Harebin, a mentor, creator, and all-round business alchemist who helps freelancers and designers turn their skills into scalable digital products. This is so exciting because back when we first started SquareKicker, over 5 years ago, Omari reached out to us and he was one of the first people to do so. And he took the time to jump on a call with us and share his ideas and encouragement in a fresh way about thinking about building a creative business. And I know we really valued that as well. And Omari, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It's really fun to be here.
Yeah, it is awesome. I use the word digital alchemist. I think you referred to yourself that in the past as well. I've heard it around the name being used. And I did the classic, what does this word even mean? And I looked up on ChatGPT, and historically it's about, transforming like base metals into like gold or silver. And I think the metaphor has kind of lingered on now and to describe things like to transform ordinary things into something extraordinary. And I think that's really cool. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to be talking about today, because I feel like throughout the years, you have had a lot of different things going on. You've had a really cool journey. And I would love, I know about it. I know who you are. We've had a lot of time together. I know a lot of our listeners also probably know you, but for those who don't, could you just give us like a little bit of a brief summary of your background, where you came from, where you're at, and even like how you got involved with this Squarespace business thing? But don't quite go into what you're doing now, because I want to transition into your kind of new things you're doing now.
Cool. Yeah. So I started my professional journey as an engineer. I went to school for engineering, and then I stayed in school for a little bit longer to get a graduate degree in marketing, because I was getting ready to graduate as a mechanical engineer, and I was doing an internship, and I looked at the guy who I was reporting to, who was probably my age now, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be that guy when I get to that age. And so I wanted to get closer to the business side of things. So I remember talking to the CEO of the company at the time, and I'm like, what path should I take? Because I want to be where you are. And he was like, well, if I could go back in time, I would probably work a little bit longer and get an MBA. And my mom she didn't really understand that logic. So she was like, no, just stay in school and get your degree now. So I stayed in school, got a degree in marketing, and then I jumped into the field of engineering for a few years. But I was always doing creative things on the side. So whether it was music or video, that very first internship that I just mentioned, I was making videos with my T-Mobile MDA. It's like a defunct thing now. But it was like the very, very pre-early days of social media. And so I was doing stuff that wasn't even possible. But I remember sitting in my cubicle thinking, man, it would be really cool one day to have like multiple channels and have like different types of content on each channel. And so anyway, that was then. And then I became a father, and that decision of like, who are you going to be came up again. And it was like, I don't want to be stuck in this cubicle a decade from now when my son grows up. So I made the daring decision to make the leap. And, Squarespace kind of became what I leaped into, because I had a Squarespace website on the side. I needed one for my creative portfolio. And then as I got into freelancing full time, I realized, oh crap, there's like a whole world of like stuff that I need to learn in order to survive out here. And that's what got me into Squarespace. Day one was just like everyone else, you're doing your creative thing and someone sees it and they're like, hey, can you make a website for me too? And so I used to throw in the website as just like a favor, just like a bonus, right? I'm doing a photo shoot or a video shoot, and the client doesn't have somewhere to actually put the content other than social media. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just cook up a Squarespace website for you overnight and throw it in the package. So that got me into the Squarespace specialist directory, and then it's kind of just been going ever since.
Mm. Nice. And you also have leaped into kind of selling digital products. Like you've worked together with some people to make some plugins. I think you've been known to kind of have a whole list of templates on your website as well. And so there's a lot of different things you kind of sell and have sold over the years up until now.
Yeah. So freelancing for a year, right? And I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people go. I'm not sure. I know a lot of people go through this. It's just up and down. You
Mm,
don't really have a sense of like stability like you had in a job, and you're also consuming a lot of content that sells you on a dream, right? Because you're obviously trying to get away from a 9 to 5 lifestyle, and then the only thing on the other side of that is the laptop dream lifestyle, right? So
mm,
I very quickly was sold on the idea of digital products being the pathway to freedom. So 2015, I'm like, all right, maybe Squarespace templates could be that digital product that gets me there. And funny enough, it didn't. Not immediately at least, but it did give me a launch pad of like really building up a pattern of uh, pattern re- uh, pattern recognition of like finding problems that were there was urgent demand and just solving those and allowing those to lead me to the product.
mm,
So couple years of just doing Squarespace tweaks, right? Customizing templates. Um, not as a developer, right? Mind you, just as a problem solver who's willing to like scour the web for solutions. Um, but the thing is, I burnt out doing that because again, it wasn't my core skill set. My core skill set was finding the stuff, not necessarily executing. So once I found a developer who could execute, it allowed me to go all in on just the marketing side of things, which full circle, it's what I really wanted to be doing. And that kind of got me to today, where anytime I run into a problem, and I find someone who has a solution, it's an instant, distribution thing of like, all right, let's get this to the market where people need it.
mm. That's really fun. I love that journey that you've been on from, engineer, student, Squarespace, digital products, freelancer, business owner, everywhere in the middle. I know you do some music on the side as well. And there's a whole bunch of cool different things you've kind of made your own way in life and through your own business. And I think that's really inspiring. I think that's what makes you so gold in this community, because you've been around for so long. And I know it doesn't mean that just makes you old, but you also have a lot of wisdom because you've done a lot of things, you made a lot of mistakes, you had a lot of success. Um, how many years have you been now on Squarespace in this community?
So I built my first Squarespace website in 2012, and then became like a Squarespace freelancer in 2014, and then I started Squarespace themes in 2015.
Wow, awesome. So more than a decade
Yeah.
by far. Um, and I'm curious because you don't meet many of these people who've been on a same platform for over a decade. So it's pretty impressive. I would love to glean some of your learnings or maybe even your observations. What have been from you the biggest changes that you've seen on Squarespace over that time?
Yeah, great question. So when I was getting started, Squarespace was emerging as like the go-to website builder for like photographers and creatives who were very visual, because the templates that came with, I think, Squarespace 6 were really beautiful. I remember I got an internship because they really liked my website, and it surprised me because I'm like, I didn't code it from scratch. These were I was very much set in the idea that like a professional website needed to be coded from scratch. So I felt like I had this cheat code with Squarespace, right? It's like I didn't really want to tell anyone, right? And so I watched Squarespace kind of evolve, where their design aesthetic kind of took over the web from 2012 to 2019, when everyone else kind of caught up, right? And then since then, I think we've seen a shift towards commerce being like that thing that people need. But more recently, though, I've had to go even further back before my Squarespace tenure to really understand what I consider founder DNA. So Squarespace's founder and CEO, right? The company has been going on since like 2024. I mean 2004. And I think in order to really understand the heart of a company, you have to understand like the drive and motivations that got it off the ground. Because even though things evolve and change, that founder DNA still trickles out today. So Anthony's experience, in 2004 of creating something for himself to solve a problem for himself, and a friend comes along or someone comes along and says, "Hey, can you do that for me?" That has literally multiplied through the Squarespace ecosystem, where today, someone is just having a great time building their own website as a hobby, as something they're doing for fun. And then someone comes along and like, "Hey, can you do that for me?" And so the reason I bring that up is because there's a lot to learn from, depending on how big you want to grow your business, there's a lot to learn from Squarespace as a business template, right? So Squarespace is $1 billion company now. And in order to become $1 billion company, they had to make sacrifices along the way. They started out with a small team, like many of us do. And just that evolution of like going from founder who's heavily in the product to having to release that. Um, I don't know Anthony's story in detail, but I can only imagine the amount of like anxiety and stress and all of the things that come with growth and scaling and having a product that impacts millions of people and millions of businesses. So I like to keep that top of mind, especially since Squarespace has gone private again, right? How do you retain that founder DNA after a
Mm,
merger or an acquisition? Because a lot of times companies don't make it. They you peak and then something happens. There's a shift in the industry, and suddenly what was once like the go-to goes away. But I think Squarespace's drive-in motivation of giving people a space on the web to be themselves, to express themselves, and to publish, and I think that still remains true today. And I try to adhere to that kind of that ethos, because otherwise, I probably won't make it. But it's why I think it's why I've endured.
mm,
I've watched a lot of Square businesses come and go. There's a quiet graveyard of Square businesses that never made it. But then there's also a plethora of businesses that have, and so I've kind of been like a coroner of the ones that
mhm,
don't make it, but I've also been somewhat of a doula for the ones that do. Where, like you said, I see things as they emerge before they become known, and that's when I'm most excited about stuff. Is like I'm a very early adopter, and
mm,
so I was a very early adopter of SquareKicker because I'm like, this is a breakthrough, right? This is gonna change the way that designers code and design on the platform. So that's in a nutshell, kind of what I've learned,
mm,
from my perspective, but then going beyond my perspective to, what really drives these
mm,
long-term shifts and evolutions. And now with I think we're at a really critical place where we have to become mindful of like, what are we doing on the internet? Like, what is the point of this? Like, have we
yeah.
forgotten what this enables us to do? Sometimes I hear designers talk about what they do as if they're like, oh, I just, I'm not curing cancer or anything, but you're creating something, a digital archive, something that will be, hopefully, it will exist in the future and allow people to get something they otherwise wouldn't have been able to get. I think that's really important.
Mm. I love that you brought up Anthony's story into this conversation because he's an entrepreneur, we're not entrepreneurs, people on the platform are entrepreneurs, and it's like this a entrepreneur platform by entrepreneurs, like, because they get the problem, they get the pain points, and I think you also get that as an entrepreneur. You see pain points are, you see those challenges, and it comes out in the kind of person who's running the business, if they are bringing their passion about being entrepreneur into being entrepreneur, it's a quite a fun place. And Squarespace has definitely shifted over the years because it's always been about, entrepreneurs being on the platform, making your own website, making your own business. And as we know, because we've been in the Squarespace Circle community for a while, which is the designer platform, that community has taken off. And I don't think that's what they intended for a platform to have these designers making websites for entrepreneurs. It should be easy enough for them to make their own website. But yet there's this whole community of pro users that have come out. And Squarespace recently in the last Circle Day have just laid it on the line and said that, yeah, we're going to double down on pro users. In fact, we're going to make pro tools. We're going to pitch towards, building this pro community to the next level so that we can empower them to go after the kind of clients they can only dream of.
Yeah.
What is your thought around that new direction that Squarespace has taken?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable. I think it was only a matter of time. I think initially they were trying to stick to the idea that like this is a DIY platform, so we don't want too many tinker. Like if you have to tinker too much, then it kind of defeats the purpose of why we created it. But problems are problems. Like they're always going to come up. So this community has literally grown because problems exist. I remind people all the time, like we wouldn't have businesses, most of us, if Squarespace didn't have limitations. So
Yeah.
every limitation, every change in the platform, I see all of that as opportunity. And luckily I've been around long enough to see this new shift of like you say, this new investment into the pro community, because the DIY user is now going to be served by AI. I think that's just plain and simple, right? It's like that is going to get to a point in the not too near future where if I want to DIY a website, I don't need some person. I could just so
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about it because there are it brings it brings value back to the human contribution, and the fact that the same thing I'm trying to accomplish with AI, it's really what I was trying to accomplish with a human. It's just the human doesn't allow me to do as many revisions or doesn't allow me to like speak however I want to speak and still figure it out. So, yeah, I think it's a fun time. And I'm excited about it. I recently published a report called the Upmarket Report, where I put together a bunch of bigger budget Squarespace projects that people usually don't see or come across because you're looking at smaller businesses. But I think, that's going to become the norm where you're going to see way more enterprise users on the platform. So yeah, lots of opportunity on the horizon.
Yeah, I've recently, you just talked about AI. I recently just went on a journey, an experiment to try a bunch of web builders that were built with AI, just like a
Yeah.
ground up AI builder. And my observation has been pretty interesting. In fact, I went to 4 different AI builders, took
Yeah.
the exact same prompt on all of them, and just put it in, said, make me a website that looks like this. And it was just the same prompt. And I kid you not, totally different platforms, totally different companies. And it gave me pretty much the same website across the board. I was actually kind of not sure if I was impressed or disappointed, because no matter what I did after that to try to make it better or different, I couldn't even make it look any better than it already was. It was like I had a vision of what it could be, because I basically said, can you rebuild SquareKicker's website? Here's the website, here's our brand, here's what we want to do, here's what it should be. Just make a homepage. And every single website it made was different than ours. Couldn't get it to look anything like it, but also just was the same no matter what I did. And I thought, okay, the DIY user can use this to spin up a business with one prompt. I get it. But there's no way you can make it look like you can do on some websites on Squarespace, especially with a designer being involved. So it's definitely a designer's game on Squarespace now.
Yeah. And so I've been playing around with AI now, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years. And what's really interesting about the AI conversation is that, yeah, you're 100% right. But 18 months from now, 36 months from now, um, it's not going to be the same,
Mm.
right?
It'll continue to get better. You're right.
Yeah, there's a world of things that I couldn't do 2.5 years ago. Like I was making AI search engines when I first kind of jumped into it, because I could see on the horizon, oh, this is going to be in 18 months, this is going to be everywhere. So yeah, all of those limitations, those constraints, they're temporary. They're just for now, and I think they're just symbols of what's going to inevitably be, right? So
Mm.
enough people are going to hit that wall of like, "Meh, meh, meh," but if you turn around two times, that wall, that there's going to be some expansion there, and just like you've done with SquareKicker, what wasn't possible will become possible.
Yep. I wish we could share more about what we're building now because it's we're pitching all over again. What will be impossible? How can we make the impossible possible? So I'm looking forward to sharing more of that in the future. But speaking about opportunities and possibilities, I wanted to pivot a little bit now into what you're doing now because we met up in New York and I saw you and I want to catch up with Mari because last year I missed you and I thought we need to catch up. So we had lunch together, kind of sitting around the corner somewhere and. I knew that you were doing something different, just trying some things out, testing the waters. And when you were sharing, you talked about some of the business changes that you were making and that what you were wanting to focus on kind of now for the next kind of season or chapter, as you said, the next decade.
Yeah.
Um, what is that? Tell us again about what's led you to this kind of new pivot or new change and how's that going?
Yeah, so I've always been who I am, and so what that means is like I've always been somewhat of a coach and an advisor, and someone and a problem solver who can kind of see things ahead of time. Uh, so that's kind of the reason why I'm around, and pouring that back into my business and into the community as a mentor and as a coach is really all I'm about right now. Um, it's kind of that simple. I've served myself well enough, and I've figured out the things that I needed to figure out that I can now see as like scalable, intangible assets. So to rewind a little bit, as I was approaching this like 10-year anniversary, I had run out of vision
Mm,
for Squarespace themes, right? In the beginning, the vision was there's going to be a world where people are going to be demanding Squarespace templates. It's going to be a thing. There's going to be dozens of people making them, so on and so forth. And so in the beginning, there wasn't anyone. It was just one other person. Um, so when that became real, it's like, well, I don't really have anything that I'm envisioning for the future of this kind of thing. So maybe it's time that I exit and sell the business. So going through this process of selling the business, I didn't actually sell the business, but just going through the process
mm,
of like due diligence and preparation, it allowed me to kind of graduate in a way of being like what I would consider like a true business owner, where it's like, all right, I've created something that can be it's a transferable asset, and something that I can walk away from. So get into the place where it's like, all right, I'm willing to walk away from this. And then that kind of unlocked a whole lot of other things in my mind where I'm like, oh, okay, I now, it's like I can see the matrix now. And instead of walking away, I can pour that insight back into the business. I could pour myself back in because I had basically taken myself out. Even though I'm pretty much a solopreneur with a dev partner, I'd pretty much kind of taken
mm,
myself out and in order to sell, and then pouring myself back in. It's like, well, who am I now? I'm no longer the scrappy freelancer who's like searching around for solutions. I'm the person who I wanted to be. So what does that mean? Well, it just means that now I can contribute in a much greater way across businesses, um, as a consultant and as an advisor, and just what it takes to grow and scale.
mhm. I love that. What really excited me about this change that you're doing is as an entrepreneur, you've had to kind of figure out how to make your own way. And you described it. And I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I've read a lot of your blogs, And I love your content because it's inspiring to me, because I remember looking up to you when before we even started SquareKicker. I was a freelancer as well, and I was like, oh, there's this guy who's got so much wisdom. And I was watching YouTube videos and trying to figure out how to make my own freelancing business. And what I've really admired about you over the years of you taking the things that are like quite literally, what's in my hands, what's right in front of me, what problems can I solve? Sure, I'm not a developer, but I can figure this out. Who do I know I can bring together to make some stuff for me? Or hey, I'm not a designer. I'm a freelancer, but I need to figure out how to make websites. But who can I bring in? And I want to use AI because I don't know how to make it, but I'm gonna figure out how to do these bits. You just kind of find these resources around you and you pull them together and you see what's in your hand and you monetize it and you make a business for yourself. And as you said, it's kind of being who you really are, not the person you people think you should be or what you think you should be. But taking all those years of experience, not necessarily even just Squarespace, it transfers into any business. And I think it's quite cool that you have a niche now in Squarespace and that community as a voice. And now you kind of help bring people into that same conversation. Okay. And you coach people. What's in your hands now? What can you do with your life and your business? And you help other people figure out what their meaning is, what their trueness is. And I think that's really inspiring. I really love how you've taken your past journeys to use it to help other people figure out their next journey as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. And you pretty much took the words out of my mouth there. Because that's literally all I guide people to nowadays is just like you have to pay attention to what you have, and
Mm,
what you really have is you have a relationship with people, with clients who come to you for something. And a lot of times it's easy to get lost in what's going on outside of your business and trying to find opportunities outside. But for me, the opportunity is always in the problem. Like,
hmm
it's the opportunities inside the frustration. It's inside of the little that it feels like you have. But if you can take that little and like break it apart, it now becomes two. And then if someone else takes it and breaks it apart, it becomes four. So
hmm
you can multiply what you have if you pay attention to it and share it. And that's what I've tried to do.
Yeah, I know that you probably have spoken to a lot of different designers who and freelancers who are doing really well, and maybe who are maybe not doing well because there's been a lot of challenges, in recent times, the economy, businesses, burnout, uncertainty. There's a lot of different things happening, especially in the last kind of 24 months or so. Um, I'm sure you've got some interesting observations of what trends you've seen, but what's been kind of the things that you've been seeing, a common theme rather from people you've been speaking to?
Yeah, so 2020, 2021, 2022, there's a big surge in online business, right? Across the industry as people decided to go all in on their dreams, right? And then we saw like it kind of taper off in 2023, 2024. There's been somewhat of a plateau, and my business has plateaued as well. And initially, you kind of go through a series of feelings when that happens after you've kind of just been going up and up and up and up. Like the first few years, it's just like, oh, the business doubles every year. This is cool. And then suddenly it doesn't anymore, and you start to wonder, what am I doing wrong, or what do I need to do differently, or you start to figure out like pull different levers, and maybe I need to market more, maybe I need to send more emails. And having gone through all of those like phases myself, when I got to the end, I'm like, this is interesting because it's plateaued, meaning that even though I was doing stuff, what was the impact of that? Now, there's always long-term impact, but like in the short term, I think I've been very aware that there are market forces that are much bigger than you, and that has always been a humbling thing for me, where when I saw kind of like the surge in 2020, 2021, I didn't think of that as like my doing. I thought of that more as like, oh, I just so happened to be like, my surfboard happened to be out there to catch the wave.
Mm,
Um, so now the same thing. It's like, all right, well, what's the next wave, right? How can I position for the future? And I think the ultimate positioning is really rooted in your truth, Meaning, what, like, who are you? You know, like, what are you really about? Because if you deviate from that, then you're faking it to make it. And I know a lot of people think that's a good idea, but you just make it being fake. So anchoring that position and like who you really are and what you're really devoted to. So this is the love component. Like, I knowing you, Nick, I know that you literally love um create, making the impossible possible, because you light up so much every time you talk about it, and that devotion, that gives your business an enduring quality, because it's not the kind of love where it's like, yeah, I just like this, it's a preference. No, no, no. It's like, this is an extension of that same truth of who I am, and it ripples out in the form of this devotion and this commitment to solving problems in a big way. And then finally, where are you most valuable? So where does that devotion turn into value for someone else? Where does
Hmm.
How does that make someone else's life easier? How does it save them some money? All of that practical stuff is an extension of that truth and that devotion, that commitment. So that's kind of that's what I've given myself in order to like keep going, right? It's like, all right, Omari, let's get back to basics and figure out like what really drives the needle internally, because that allows you to withstand the storms externally. So as the
Hmm.
market forces come and shift, you can stay anchored in the fact that, like, okay, yeah, demand might have dipped for something, but demand is actually growing in another area, right? So where eventually the demand for what I was selling 5 years ago might go down, well, the problems don't go away. Like, human problems and frustrations and all, and like uncertainty doesn't disappear. And really, at the end of the day, that's kind of my specialty, is like, how do you grapple with uncertainty, right? In a way that
Hmm.
allows you to stay rooted and anchored, so that you can navigate these different shifts that are bound to happen.
Yeah, I love the humanness and the vulnerability that you bring to this conversation, and I think as well to your kind of clients and community. It's one thing to reach out to or listen to celebrities online who've made success. These CEOs or these founders who have just hit gold, and they put them on a pedestal and they talk about the success they've had. But then there's a whole bunch of businesses who, like us and other people around, who maybe have just like plateaued because of the economy or the other businesses. I mean, it'd be a shame for me not to say that our business is very reliant on other people's business. So if their businesses aren't thriving, then how could ours? And so I think we in the same way have been asking ourselves, like, how do we actually do more for us? And I think really it's nothing we can do more. It's just, I think it's how do we continue to look at the opportunities around us, look for the next step, look for the next wave, as you will. And I think there's probably a lot of people maybe listening right now who are reflecting, like, okay, so maybe my business has plateaued as well. And maybe it's nothing I've done, but what wisdom or encouragement could you give those people who are experiencing that right now? Because I think you've been through that. You understand that. Maybe the famous person influencer on YouTube doesn't know how to get through that, but how could you guide them through that journey?
So sorry. Yeah, so it's kind of back to the, like, what you just said. How If my business exists because another business exists, right? How do I direct my energy so that I can help those businesses sustain
Hmm.
and grow, right? So how do I convert what I have, whatever that is, into a resource, into something of value that then allows them to keep going?
Hmm.
I think that is like the real human aspect, is I don't exist without you. You don't exist without me. So how do I make sure that we coexist together?
Yeah.
What's funny is, like, when we met at Circle Day, I think someone was walking by and they were like, "Hey, are you guys, like, do you guys compete?" Like, and we laughed because, one, technically no, not at all, because you're selling. You're very specific that SquareKicker is not a plugin, right? And I've been known for plugins, but beyond that, though, um, we've had a collaborative relationship where,
Mm,
in my mind, if SquareKicker does well, designers do like. If everyone does well, then what it rises the tide for everyone. So
mm,
it's very easy to like get lost in your own sauce of like, oh man, here's what I need, or here's what I'm trying to get. But everyone is lost in their own sauce, right? And that's their true opportunities. Everyone's out for themselves, really, at the end of the day, regardless of like, whatever we say, it's like we're trying to stay alive for ourselves, right?
mm,
So knowing that if you give people what's going to help them stay alive, they're going to reach out and grab it, right?
mhm.
They're going to go for it.
That's I love that. I feel like I'm getting a therapy session with you right now, Mari. Like I'm just sitting here going, oh yeah, like how are we doing that? And a lot of things we've been discussing within our own team is, also that those same things. Okay, our entire mission is to empower designers to live the life that they want to live. Can we help them? How do we help them scale? How do we help them charge more, work less? What is it that they want to do? How do we help them get there? And so I think, all these different things we can do. Making tools is only one of those things. Making options for people to give us money so we can give them things back. But that's not the only thing we want to do. If that really is our mission, we shouldn't be about that other thing. Otherwise, our mission is about making more money off designers, which is not our mission. And so that's why we're doing things like this, like free resources and podcasts. That's why we're spending lots of money on very other bits of our business that actually just help people out, writing articles and blogs and free resources and videos, just to help empower those businesses. And I think what you're right about that is that it comes back around because of it helps them, it helps your customer, helps your clients to grow their business. That in return is also going to come back into you because then they'll be able to use you and your resources to continue to grow their business. So I really like how you've looked outward about how you can help someone else to grow your own business inward. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and to simplify, right? We're creating assets, right? Your business is an asset. And if you think about what an asset is, it's something that stores value, that has future benefit, right? So if you think about everything you're doing every day in terms of future benefit, you're good.
Mm,
You're all right. But if what you're doing on a daily basis is going to cost the future you, if the future you is going to have to pay for it down the line, then it becomes a liability. So taking that concept, it can really help you grow. And then every product or thing that I've done that has been like worthwhile, it all started as a favor, right? It always started as something that came from the heart. So in order to make more money, I have to stay in the world of being able to do favors, right?
mm,
So I'll give you a quick example. I was doing a favor for a client earlier this year of just like sourcing some RFPs for her. And she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I think people would like to buy this from you if you made it available. And I said, all right, say less. I don't need to hear that two times. Um, and now it's a thing. It's another product. But I, I I take that principle with me everywhere where like the favor, a lot of what I've done over the past 5 years or 6 years, 7 years, I haven't monetized, right? It's
mm,
just from the good, right? It's just like, this is good. And if it's good, it's enough. And if you do enough of that, people will come back around for more, right? You
mm,
do it, you give a favor. That favor is what I monetize. That's how I
mm,
know there's a really good thing there because it came from a good place. It had a direct impact on at least one person, and that one person can testify that, oh yeah, it really was good, and that leads to two, it leads to three, and now you have the start of a whole new revenue stream just off the back of a favor. So as long as you stay in that space of goodwill, and creating goodwill for the entire marketplace, it really works out long term. That's the seed that allowed me to like be like, oh, okay, so if I consider the entire market as a client or as a customer, and I seek to serve not just the immediate client in front of me, but seek to serve the entire market, then it gives your business an enduring quality.
I love it. I feel like that's the kind of been the theme of your business and maybe even your life is just being able to be authentic and to help serve the people around you. And I think that kind of pays dividends into the community, but then obviously in your own, your own life and your own business on how you want to live. So that's pretty fun and exciting. Um, I want to shift into a kind of a little bit of a recurring segment we like to go into, and for starters, I love doing these podcasts because it is a breath of fresh air to kind of talk to business owners and entrepreneurs like yourself when it's so easy to be like on YouTube, on stage, on a blog saying, I'm living it, I'm hustling it, and it's going well. All success here. And, we're smashing SEO blogs, just trying to put keywords in there to get top of the listing. We're just spamming every place we could possibly think of to shout louder. But then actually on the inside, we're like, well, I'm just trying to figure out how to make this business work. And I think take a step back and just say there's a real person here who's got a real kind of heart and passion to help people. If that kind of comes out, then that's maybe more important than just kind of pretending like you've got it all figured out. So thanks for sharing your journey, your story up to this point. Where have we got to?
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it because I've done all the stuff too.
Yeah.
The only way I can speak how I'm speaking now is because I took the detours to figure out, oh, what happens if you do this? What happens if you do that? But I found that everything is better in the light.
Right. Awesome. Well, let's take a little bit more of a look behind the scenes. I'd love to kind of see a little bit about your site now. So you've obviously got a website. You've been talking about SQSP themes. Yeah, if you want to share your screen, just walk us through a bit of that. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So I recently kind of just revamped my homepage for the first time in all time.
All
So
time.
for a long time, my homepage was simply I would rotate it through either the template
Mm,
directory or the plugin shop, or more recently the designer directory, but there was never any single
mm,
thing that brought you home, right? That kind of let you
yeah.
know like what this is all about. And it's been a sore pain for me this entire time because um one of my pet peeves is being misunderstood or being misidentified. And so for a lot of times, sometimes people will think, oh yeah, don't you make templates? I'm like, well, no, I never actually made templates. I'm an affiliate for people who make templates. So anyway, this is the current homepage of Squarespace themes, and I think what I'm most proud of is it speaks quite simply to
Mm,
why we exist, why we're here, and really the point in someone's Squarespace journey that we become kind of like important, which is when you're ready to go all in, right? So whether it's going all in as a freelancer or whether it's going all in on a Squarespace related product, that's why we're here. Because we connect the community with those tools, resources that they need to customize, optimize, and grow their businesses. Why? Because I've been there, right? This is exactly my journey turned inside out. And it's what keeps us going. So everything is right here, right? You can find a Squarespace designer, a template, a plugin. You can get our newsletter. You can download a fresh report. You can join me weekly for what feels like business therapy, or you can partner with us to amplify your reach and grow within the community. And then obviously that's not where it's supposed to be, but
I
but
like it. It's
you
unique
know
and different.
yeah, it's a human touch, right? So it's a letter, right? It's a founder letter, and for the first time, I was able to just easily communicate. All right, here's what we do at Squarespace Themes, and up until this point, I hadn't been able to put it all together.
I think our entire conversation has led up to this point of like, having a simple website, I'm not trying to be flashy. I'm just trying to be human. And you kind of, as you said, this is a letter, who I am, everything's out. You have enough of a reputation now in the Squarespace community that you don't need to prove yourself. And you've kind of had a business that you've grown and a reputation that having something really simple like that on your homepage now, just saying, here's who I am, here's what I do. If you want to jump in, have fun, but
Yeah.
let me know how I can help.
Yeah, I'm still a DIY Squarespace user.
Yeah,
Like I still
great.
hold that identity. I'm not a designer, I'm not a developer. I'm just turning myself inside out so the other Squarespace DIYers can get something out of it.
Nice. Love it. Um, okay, well, there's another one we want to go through is about we call it design confessions. I feel like we've already had lots of confessions, but we're gonna keep going into it. Um, Tell us about a time where something didn't go well, or maybe there was a mistake, a misstep, and a learning that you have maybe laughed about now, but at the time maybe wasn't as easy.
Yeah, so when you sent me the pre-call thing and I saw this question, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to sit with that for a while." um, because nothing came to my mind immediately. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to unpack that part of my memories.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
yeah, I think the part of like, what can I laugh at in hindsight? Um, and I think it's just like on a simple level, just taking myself too seriously. I like the homepage I showed you, right? For a long time, I carried the expectations of like perfectionism and like wanting to do what I saw but couldn't do, right? And I think a
Mm,
lot of people probably struggle with that, where you see things that are just like amazing and you're like, man, I wish I could do that, but you can't. So it's like, well, you gotta do what you can with what you got. And so that's probably the thing that I would speak to most, is just the fact that like, just be honest about about what you can do and what you can't do, and that will allow you to actually do more of what you can do, as opposed to feeling insecure or insufficient or like, oh, I'm not good enough. That's really what it is, right? There's this chronic underlying feeling when you look out at things that are good, that, man, I wish I could be that good, or I wish and the truth is, there is an area where you've already been good enough, and if you focus there, then you'll be all right.
yeah. I'm People are attracted to authenticity, aren't they? Like I think when people come to me on someone's website or when they come to meet you for the first time, we always expect to have our best foot forward because we want to impress them. But they don't care about you the same way you do. They're not looking for them to be impressed. I think what they're looking for is like, can I trust this person? Are they authentic? And I think everyone else around is trying to figure out how to way to shout louder, be more impressive, look really important, look how awesome I am. And they're like, they just see right through it. Like if you just your real authentic self, I feel like that is so much more valuable than trying to prove how awesome you are.
Yeah. eh, we were talking about Anthony earlier. Um, I don't know how long ago this was, but I remember reading an article where he said Squarespace is really trying to solve the problem of self-expression, and I
Mm,
really resonated with that. But I also felt like, well, that's a whole different work than a website platform, right? The problem of self-expression goes a lot deeper into everything that you just said. So that's really what I've kind of trying to been figure out for myself, is like, all right, well, yeah, how do I express myself on the web?
mm, that's awesome. Hey, last one. This one's called Off the Grid. What's one thing outside your work or your design, your business, your freelancing that helps you stay creative and motivated?
Yeah, definitely my children. I have a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and they I homeschool them, so it means that they're my responsibility. What they learn, and how
Mm.
they whatever they take in from the world. I'm kind of like the one who stares at. So they it keeps me in a state of play and in a state of like just fresh um fresh ideas. Like I have, like, my job with them is to play. Right? So the more I'm immersed in their worlds, and then when I come back out, I feel fresh. I feel like, okay, cool. I know what's important.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. Yeah, anyone who's got kids can, I think, relate to that as well. Having your kids in your life that keeps you kind of grounded and humble, and also, yeah, it keeps you young because you're always having to kind of come into their world and see what's going on and how you actually engage with them where they're at, like, rather than trying to expect them to kind of jump into your world and kind of meet you where you're at. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Um, Before we kind of wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to share? A launch, another project you're working on, something you're excited about? We'll love to get the opportunity to just share anything you want before we finish up.
Yeah, so what I'm most excited about is every Monday at noon Eastern, I have a weekly group coaching call where we talk about this stuff. And folks can bring their problems, they can bring what's going on in their business, and we can unpack it. And what I'm always listening for and looking for are those hidden opportunities that are tucked inside your client work. People tend to be very cagey about their business and what they actually do, but for me, that's where all the value is. So the more you're able to be transparent and kind of open up a little bit, is the more like I literally can't have a conversation with someone where my ears don't light up at something that they think is a problem. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second, you've got some gold there. And so this weekly call, it gives me a sense of accountability because there's a rhythm there. For anyone who needs accountability, it gives them that as well, where it's like, all right, I can jump in, I can jump out, but I know that there's always a place that I can go to kind of get that additional support that's not technical. Um, but very much needed in order to grow. So that's what I'm most excited about, because I hadn't offered this before, but it's really the thing that I'm best at. And so now being able to offer that makes me feel great. It makes me feel like I'm in alignment, and I can share that with everyone. So you're always welcome to join. You can check it out at sqspthemes.com. Something there will show you where to go.
That's great. I really hope that people from this call head over to that site and have a look. That sounds like a lot of fun. Um, yeah, I'll just wrap up and say, everyone, just thanks for joining us on Looks Good From Here. I hope you enjoyed this chat with a look behind the pixels. And if you want to find any more links to Omari's work, jumping in those calls we just talked about, or any of the conversations and things we've had, you can have a look in the description below. And don't forget to also subscribe to the YouTube channel for more conversations like this with creatives shaping what life looks like online. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Omari.
Thanks, Nick. It's been fun.